One question I get asked all the time is, what are my go-to plugins? What are my essential plugins? And in today's video, I want to answer that question for all you guys watching at home. So if you're somebody who's looking for inspiration on what plugins to use, or if maybe you're looking for some new tools to incorporate into your workflow, this is going to be the perfect video for you. Are you ready? Let's go. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is your boy 5-Piece producer and engineer extraordinaire. The way this video is going to work is I'm going to list a category or a type of plugin. So for example, EQ, and then I'm going to actually list the plugin that I like to use for that specific role. These are all tools at the end of the day, and these are my picks. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you use something different that you're using the wrong thing or that it's worse. It just means this is what I prefer, and I'd love to hear from you guys as well. If you like certain plugins that I'm not listing in this video, definitely leave it in the comments below. Now, one additional thing before we get started is while I am going to overview the plugins that I like to use, I'm not necessarily going to show you how to use them or show you any examples or any of that stuff. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to link out to some of my other videos that'll probably do a better job of doing that. So pay attention throughout and click the cards that you see in the top corner or in the description below to see these plugins in action. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about the first category, and that is EQ. I personally love to use the FabFilter Pro Q3. This is my Desert Island plugin. I could do so much with this plugin, and especially the Q3. There's a lot of improvements that they've made over the previous versions, and some of the stuff that I like to do, for example, is I can create a dynamic band in this plugin, and that's amazing. I could turn this static EQ into a dynamic EQ, and that's something that I love to do. I could even have it be sidechained to something, and that'll help clear up some frequency masking. This is something I've talked about in some of my other videos, and I even am able to see the frequencies as they correspond on the keyboard at the bottom here, right? So if I choose a frequency, I can see right here that it falls onto A sharp. This is an amazing thing to do if I want to make some strategic moves, whether it's a boost or a cut in the key of a song, and I love features like that. So definitely the FabFilter Pro Q3 is my top EQ pick, but I also want to mention another plugin, and that is the UAD Pultec Equalizer. So this is the legacy version that I use, to be honest. I know there is a newer one, but I honestly have no problem using this, and I love to use this over the Pro Q at times, specifically for sweetening. To be honest, I don't use it over the Pro Q. I usually use them in tandem with one another. So I'll use the Pro Q to do some more strategic moves, whether it's filtering or reducing or using the dynamic bands as I kind of mentioned, and then I'll go to the Pultec here to do some more additive or sweetening kind of moves, whether it's enhancing the low end of a sound or the high end, or maybe doing the same thing but on a group or even on the master. So I have to mention both of these because I'm using them definitely in a different way. One more for additive sweetening processes and the other more strategically and in a more calculated way. So to take this a step further, I actually have a video called My Top 5 EQ Plugins and How I Use Them. I'll leave a link to it up above right now and in the description below, but check that out because I break down both of these plugins, and not only that, but I actually show you how I've used them in a mix and what that sounds like. So definitely check that out. Now, the next category we should explore is compressor plugins, and my compressor plugin choice is the R-Comp. Now, this is tough because I do use a lot of different compressors, but if I had to rely on just one, I think the R-Comp would be it. It's very versatile. I could get a lot of different sounds out of it. Whether I really want to affect something and add some warmth, I could do that with this plugin, and I could even dial it in to sound very transparent. I love to use it on vocals. I love to use it on all kinds of individual tracks, really, and that's my main go-to way of using it, is I'll apply it to individual tracks. Now, that being said, if I could take it up a notch, I would like to also mention this as my pick for my bus compressor, and this is the Brainworks BX Townhouse bus compressor. I got this last year. I've been loving this plugin. It's definitely like an SSL type of plugin. I find it really adds a lot of warmth and impact to a sound, especially on drum buses, groups, and masters, and I definitely would recommend that you check this plugin out as well, because of all the SSL type of emulation plugins, I personally like this one the best, and I love to use this specifically on buses, groups, and masters. So I'll go to the R-Comp for my individual tracks, but then I'll come to this on my buses, groups, and masters. Now, if you want to see these compressors in action, I recommend you watch my rap mixing vocal chain video. I'll leave a link to it up above right now and the description below, but I use some of these tools and it'll give you a good idea of how they work and how I specifically use them in a mix. Now, kicking it up a notch from compression, I want to talk about multi-band compressors, and you guys should know this if you've watched my other videos. I love the FabFilter Pro MB. That's my go-to. In fact, I actually use this over a lot of other compressors and even some of those ones that I just recommended, because this is a lot more versatile. I can actually select specific bands and then compress them in unique ways. And of course, I love to use this for sidechain compression especially. I'd much rather focus on a specific band and sidechain compress that rather than compress the entire signal, because that'll generally lead to more transparent and cleaner results. If you want to watch a video where I talk more about how I use this multi-band compressor specifically in my mixes to achieve a smoother vocal sound, I'll leave a link to a video up above right now and in the description below. So next up we have gates, and I like to use the C1 gate. This is my go-to. It's from Waves. It's a very simple and effective tool. It's not really fancy by any means, and I do realize there's a lot of great gate tools out there, but for me, I like to go to this one and use that for all of my mixes. It's great to clean up noise and ambient background stuff that's happening on recordings, whether it's on my video audio or in a song, because sometimes artists are sending me stuff with headphone bleed and all that. So this is a great tool that I use all the time, and honestly, the presets are incredible. Simply using the perfect voiceover gate will already get you 80 to 90% of the way, I find, for most mixes. You just got to dial in the settings a little bit better for your source material, but overall, great plugin to use. And if you want to see a video where I show you how I like to use vocal gates in my session to clean stuff up, I'll leave a link to a video right now in the top corner and in the description below. Next, let's talk de-essers. And of course, I like to use the FabFilter Pro DS. This is slowly becoming a FabFilter product placement, but they have not sponsored this video, I promise you. They're just a great brand that obviously creates amazing tools that are really easy and simple to use. And for that reason, I rely on this. I've used a lot of de-essers, whether it's from Waves and other companies, but I find this one is just super effective. I like that I can solo and really hear the problem that I'm treating, the S that I'm treating, or maybe the sibilance, whatever it is. I always am able to really dial that in and really effectively and treat it equally as effectively, whether it's using just one or using them in series. So this is a great tool to deal with harsh vocals. And speaking of harsh vocals, if you want to see how I use a de-esser and other tools to treat harsh vocals, I'm gonna leave a link to a video right now. It's one of my most popular ones. It's how to fix harsh vocals. Check that out. I'll also leave it in the description below if you want to learn how to treat this very common problem in mixing. So next up, let's talk about effects, starting with reverb. And for reverb, I love to rely on the UAD EMT 140. This is a plate reverb. I love to use plates, especially on vocals, but also on other sounds, whether it's percussion or snares or something else like that. And honestly, this is an amazing plugin. Even though it does require some additional hardware to run, I find that this has been my preferred reverb for a very long time. And if you guys want to see this reverb in action and also learn more about reverb and how to effectively use it in your mix, definitely check out my video, 8 vocal reverb tips. I'll leave a link to it up above and in the description below. With reverb out of the way, let's talk about delay. And for me, I personally love to use SoundToy's Echo Boy. This is a great tool, and I actually was put onto this a little bit later. I had it on my system for a very long time, but finally one day I got sick of the delays I was using and I decided to queue it up. And I just love the way that you can use this plugin. It's so effective, and especially because of the styles. The styles here make a huge difference in terms of the sound. It adds some saturation and some noticeable different characteristics, and each style is way different from the other. You know, Echoplex will sound way different from the AM FM radios or from the Space Echo and all that stuff. And I love that versatility that you have with this plugin. You could definitely create a whole bunch of different sounds, and at the same time you can of course achieve the standard delay sound that you get with a lot of these other plugins. Now I do have to give an honorable mention to H-Delay, because I do still use that one. I think H-Delay is the simplest and most effective at the same time, because it's just so easy to get a good sound out of that. But if you want to get that same functionality and also have the advantage of being able to create a new style or just sound, if you want to just sound a little bit more unique and different, definitely use Echo Boy. That's how I've been using it, and I find it to be extremely effective. Now that being said, if you want to see these delays in action, definitely check out my video 10 vocal delay tips. I'll leave a link to it up above and down below, but I'm going to break down some specific things that you should be mindful of and that you should do when setting up a delay in your mix. All right, we're getting close to the bottom of the list here, but next let's talk about limiters. And for me, the limiter of choice is the FabFilter Pro L2. Okay, this is like the holy grail of limiting. Everybody uses this, and for good reason. It's just so simple to use. It's very effective. It sounds transparent. Get rid of your peaks. You could drive your volume. It does what a limiter needs to do. And not only that, but it gives you some advanced features that you sometimes do not see in other plugins, whether it's the style or being able to control the attack and release. You know, it has oversampling. You could change the limiting from true peak and turn that off. You can do so much with this, and it does what every other limiter does, but a little bit better. And of course, it's very easy and simple to use, which is why I love to use it. Now, if you want to see a video where I break down how I use limiters in my session, definitely check out my video, how to get louder masters using a limiter. That's going to be a super deep video. It's going to go over a lot of different stuff, but I think by the end of it, you'll come out knowing how to use a limiter way more effectively to achieve a much louder mix and master at the end of the day. And speaking of mastering, let's talk about one of my favorite mastering suites, which is Ozone 9. That's the most recent version, at least as far as I know. I do know they update this, so depending on when you watch this video, there may be a different version available, but this plugin is incredible. It has a whole bunch of modules, as you can see here. There's a whole lot of stuff you can use, and I personally use all of them. Sometimes I use them individually, whether it's the exciter, just for saturating a sound, or maybe it's the vintage tape, just to get some more of a tape effect on a sound. But really, when it comes to mastering, I'm primarily focused on these three, the dynamic EQ, the imager, the stereo imager to push the stereo field a little bit or maybe pull it and make it a little bit more mono. And then of course the maximizer, which is an extension of the limiter, so to speak. And by the way, if you're not sure what the difference is between a limiter, a maximizer, and even a clipper, I have a great video where I break that down and explain the difference between all three. I'll leave a link to that up above right now. But the Ozone suite is a great value for your money. I find it's the go-to thing that I always use, whether it's the imager or the maximizer or just one of the individual components. Everything adds up and it always works in some capacity or another. It doesn't mean you need to use everything that it offers, but I find that I will definitely use the whole thing and then sometimes just one part of it, depending on what I'm working on. Now, one other interesting thing about this plugin is it has this master assistant, and this master assistant will essentially master the record for you. You just choose certain variables that you want to meet, and it'll automatically do that for you. A lot like some of these sites that you see, but you don't have to obviously pay for a subscription or this ongoing thing. You can literally just queue this up, press master assistant, and let it do the hard work for you after tweaking a couple of settings. Now, that being said, I actually have a great video where I shoot it out, where I use that master assistant and I compare it to my own master. I'm gonna leave a link to that up above right now and in the description below, but it's a great primer to see exactly how the master assistant works and how it differs from somebody actually mastering your record for you. So definitely check that out if you have a chance. Now, as somebody who spent a lot of money on plugins, probably in excess of $5,000 or $6,000, I know how expensive this stuff can be, and depending on where you are in your career, you may or may not be able to afford this stuff. So I wanted to talk about exactly how you can get these plugins for a lower price. Now, one way that you could do it is you could obviously buy bundles. So for example, I listed 4 different FabFilter plugins in this video. You could get those plugins in a bundle, and at the same time, you'll save some money because since you're buying so many, FabFilter gives you a discount in the process, right? The other thing to do is pay attention for sales. So Waves and Plugin Alliance, they often have sales ongoing every few weeks or months, and some more frequently than others. But either way, a lot of the plugins that I mentioned, you can get for less than $30 US, which I find to be very helpful rather than spending, in excess of $100 per plugin. And to piggyback on that, another way to save some money is to try to buy plugins around major holidays. This is often when a lot of these companies will run sales, and we're talking about Easter, Black Friday, Christmas, Boxing Day. Those are the big ones that I notice where almost every single company has some sort of sale. And as you can imagine, especially close to that Christmas holiday is when a lot of stuff is on sale. They're just trying to print as much money as they can. And that's the great time to buy, okay? So if you're not buying in that window, some of these companies, you might still get a sale. So like Waves as an example, they have sales happening all the time. But a company like FabFilter, you're pretty much never going to get any kind of discount unless you're buying around that time. And one additional bonus is once you've bought some plugins from a company, usually they have some sort of kickback where if you come back, they'll give you another discount to buy more, okay? So as an example, since I have a couple of FabFilter plugins, they sent me an offer to get FabFilter Saturn for like 30% off or something like that the other day. I didn't take advantage of it, but nonetheless, because I've already purchased something, they're going to ultimately offer me some sort of cross-grade offer to then get additional plugins for a lower cost. It just makes sense. So take advantage of these opportunities when they come up, and you'll definitely be able to score some of these plugins for a little bit less. All right? If you got value out of this video, I appreciate it if you smash that like button until it turned blue. And if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely subscribe to the channel because I drop a new piece of content just like this every single week, always focused on helping you sound better and helping you make more money with your music. I appreciate you guys for watching. Definitely let me know what plugins you're using in the comments below, even if they're different from the ones I have here. And if you want to see anything in a future video, also let me know in the comments. All right? I'm looking forward to helping you guys again on the next video. Y'all take care now. Peace.
5